Rolex just blinked. In a move that has luxury insiders gasping and collectors in disbelief, Rolex has allegedly slashed prices on some of its most coveted models, by as much as 10%. That might sound minor, but in the world of high-end horology, that's an earthquake. For decades, Rolex has stood as the pinnacle of prestige, charging 5 figures for timepieces that symbolized power, legacy, and elite status. So why now? Why this sudden rollback? Because something much bigger is brewing beneath the surface. The luxury market is cracking, and Rolex is caught in the crossfire. Over the last 2 years, the once booming secondary market for Rolex watches has imploded. The secondhand Rolex index, once climbing like a rocket, has now crashed over 30% since its peak in March 2022. Collectors who treated their watches like investments are now watching value drain by the day. And it's not just about market cycles or demand dips. This collapse is allegedly fueled by a much darker truth.
You pay $4,400 for a Mid-S Tudor Black Bay monochrome. You pay almost $10,000 for a Rolex America. And a Royal Oak extra thin, it costs like $36,000. Cheap is not a word that applies.
The watch is often blurred. However, when you come to Guangzhou, you cannot see any problem just by looking at the appearance. What you need to be careful about is that the low quality movement inside will be sold at a high price.
My suggestion is you can try first or buy it for a legal way. I'm Sean. See you next time.
95% of the world's watches are made here, including the one you're wearing right now. Many big brand watches are produced or sourced for parts from here. This place is Shenzhen City, the world watch capital city. And in Shenzhen, you must not miss this factory.
Asking y'all should receive. Tisa, where are the watch manufacturers? I did some digging and I found the watch manufacturers. There is a new scandal coming out of the luxury watch division. Listen, if you want to keep going to Rolex, if you want to keep going to AP and spending your money, go and do that. However, industry insiders are coming out, and I have their videos. People have even been fired from it for lifting the hood away from the ugly.
Chinese manufacturers are now speaking out, pulling back the curtain on what really goes into those Swiss-made masterpieces. And according to them, the reality is far from luxurious. If what they're claiming is true, Rolex might not just be reacting to market forces, it might be scrambling to cover up an empire built on branding smoke and mirrors. And the fallout? It's just beginning. For decades, Rolex has operated with a godlike grip on the luxury watch market. Their prices only went one direction, up. But now, they're moving backwards. Reports claim Rolex has initiated quiet price cuts on select models, with discounts nearing 10%. This may seem subtle to outsiders, but to those in the industry, it's a screaming red flag. Rolex doesn't do discounts. That's been the rule since the beginning. If prices are dropping, it's because something's broken, and they're trying to fix it before the world notices. But here's the kicker, everyone's already noticed.
Watches come in different sizes. A small dial makes your wrist slimmer, while a larger one makes you a stronger era. First of all, you need to determine your budget range. The Rolex data just is the best choice for cost-effective.
Since 2022, resale prices for Rolex watches have tanked, some models plummeting faster than crypto. The secondhand market, once a gold mine, has turned into a graveyard. Collectors are offloading their pieces in droves, panicking over values that seem to fall weekly. And Rolex's response? Instead of standing firm like they always have, they've allegedly flinched. This shift signals one thing: the house of cards may be wobbling. Worse, insiders believe the cuts aren't a calculated adjustment. They're a desperate pivot to maintain brand relevance in a landscape that's starting to question everything. Because the problem isn't just supply and demand, it's trust. And that trust is about to be shattered. The illusion of luxury is crumbling, and it's being dismantled by the very people who helped build it. In a stunning exposé that's gone viral across global platforms, Chinese manufacturers have come forward claiming they've been quietly producing parts for the biggest luxury brands in the world, including Rolex. These aren't tabloid rumors. These are verified factory workers, contract engineers, and supply chain insiders pulling receipts. And the claims? Brutal. They allege that Rolex and other so-called handcrafted watchmakers aren't nearly as exclusive or authentic as they lead customers to believe. According to these manufacturers, components like bezels, clasps, and even cases have been outsourced for years, with Swiss facilities serving more as assembly lines than artisanal workshops. Let that sink in. The brand that has long bragged about its legacy of in-house craftsmanship may have been slapping Swiss labels on parts made thousands of miles away. And here's the real kicker. These same manufacturers are now going direct to consumer. They've allegedly launched their own platforms, selling nearly identical pieces, minus the Rolex logo, for a fraction of the price. So now, Rolex isn't just losing reputation, they're facing a new wave of competition from the very hands that used to feed them. This isn't just brand erosion, it's brand betrayal. And Rolex, they might have just been caught in the biggest luxury lie of the decade. But the backlash doesn't stop there. Once hailed as the gold standard of craftsmanship, Rolex is now facing an identity crisis, and it's unraveling fast. For years, Rolex capitalized on the power of perception. The phrase Swiss-made wasn't just a label, it was a badge of honor. It implied legacy, precision, and unparalleled artistry. But now, that iconic label is under fire. Thanks to the manufacturing expose, consumers are waking up. They're asking uncomfortable questions. How much of a Rolex is actually made in Switzerland? How many hands does a single watch pass through before it reaches the velvet tray of a boutique store? And most importantly, if the parts are made in bulk overseas, what exactly are we paying for? The answer, allegedly, is the logo. The brand's dependence on third-party suppliers has shattered the illusion of exclusivity. People are starting to realize they're shelling out $15,000 not for craftsmanship, but for branding, and that realization stings. Collectors are furious. Influencers who once flaunted their watches as status symbols are now dead silent, or worse, sarcastic. Resellers are ditching inventory they once held like stock. Online forums are flooded with posts titled, "Is Rolex still worth it?" and "I sold my Rolex and bought this instead." This isn't a dip in public opinion, this is a reputational freefall. And if Rolex doesn't change the narrative soon, the damage could be irreversible. But that's not the only storm they're weathering. The luxury landscape has changed, and it's not going back. Once upon a time, owning a Rolex meant you'd made it. It was the ultimate reward, a lifetime achievement unlocked. But today's consumers? They aren't chasing that narrative anymore. They're chasing value. These buyers aren't swayed by prestige. They've done the math. They've watched the factory exposes. They know a watch's production cost isn't anywhere near the price tag it's sold at. They know the margins are absurd, and they're not playing along anymore. And that shift is fueling a new kind of market. Chinese manufacturers are now creating watches with near-identical specs, sapphire crystal, automatic movement, steel casing, for a sliver of the price. And thanks to TikTok, Reddit, and YouTube, these brands are exploding. Side-by-side comparisons are everywhere. And let's be honest, most people can't tell the difference. So if the craftsmanship is similar and the look is identical, why pay 10 times more? That's the question Rolex can't afford consumers to keep asking. But here's the catch. It's not just about cheaper alternatives. It's about ethics too. Today's buyers care where things are made. They want transparency. They want authenticity. And most importantly, they don't want to be lied to. So when news breaks that a Swiss masterpiece was actually pieced together in a Guangdong warehouse, that's not just bad press. That's betrayal. And it's fueling a consumer revolution Rolex didn't see coming. So, how's the company responding? Well, Rolex is scrambling, and their next moves say it all. In what many insiders are calling a panic pivot, Rolex has opened its very first direct-to-consumer boutique in China. Think about that. For a company that's famously gatekept its products through elite authorized dealers, this shift is massive. For decades, Rolex thrived on scarcity. Long wait lists, limited releases, backdoor deals, it was all part of the game. But now, that exclusivity model is crumbling, and the brand knows it. By going direct in China, Rolex is trying to reassert control over its biggest and now most skeptical market. They want to intercept the narrative, monitor pricing, and rebuild a sense of trust. But here's the problem. Trust once broken doesn't come back easily. They've also begun adjusting their global distribution. According to reports, Rolex is quietly reevaluating partnerships, limiting certain authorized dealers, and exploring more brand-controlled channels. Translation, they're tightening the reins. Hard. And why wouldn't they? The Chinese manufacturers who exposed them aren't just talking, they're competing. They've launched rival watch brands with eerily similar aesthetics and brutally lower prices. Rolex isn't just defending its image anymore, it's fighting for survival. But here's the million-dollar question. Is it too late? The next chapter in this saga might be the one that decides Rolex's future in the luxury world. And it's not looking pretty. Rolex might be the first to feel the heat, but they won't be the last. This entire scandal is sounding alarms across the luxury world. Because if a titan like Rolex can be exposed for allegedly outsourcing production and inflating prices beyond reason, it begs one brutal question. Who's next? Luxury brands across fashion, jewelry, and accessories are now on high alert. Many of them have built empires on the same formula: controlled scarcity, inflated mystique, and strategic storytelling. But in a world where TikTok users can reverse engineer your markup and factory workers can go viral with a single exposé, that formula doesn't hold like it used to. Transparency isn't optional anymore, it's demanded. And the old tricks, made in insert prestige country, limited edition, handcrafted excellence, aren't cutting it with today's buyers. Consumers want proof. They want production logs, they want to know where every stitch, every part, and every dollar goes. And if luxury brands can't provide it, they'll be replaced by brands that can. This is a reckoning, not just for Rolex, but for Hermes, for Louis Vuitton, for Cartier, for any brand still clinging to the illusion that exclusivity alone is enough to justify five-figure price tags. Because the new luxury isn't about status, it's about honesty. And that shift, it's shaking the entire industry to its core. The exposure of manufacturing practices and subsequent price adjustments by Rolex may signify a pivotal moment in the luxury industry where transparency and value become paramount. As consumers demand more authenticity, brands will need to adapt to maintain their esteemed positions in the market.